very good afternoon. It's the 29th of August 2023. Welcome to the lunchtime news here on TV1. For the News First team, I'm Senitha Senanayaka. Before we take a look at the stories in detail, let's take a look at the headlines.
Aswasama beneficiaries arrive at banks to obtain their funds.
අපේ මගේ සල්ලි නම් රුපියල් 5000ක මුදලක් වැටිලා තියෙනවා.
දවස් 7 දිනයක් කිව්වේ නෑ සල්ලි වැටලා නෑ කිව්වා.
CEB says hydropower plants can only produce electricity for 35 days. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to visit Sri Lanka this weekend. Government agrees to interim compensation for the Express Pearl disaster. Hurricane and storm surge warnings for Florida as Idalia heads north.
In your top story this afternoon, beneficiaries of the Aswasama Social Benefit Scheme gathered at many banks across Sri Lanka to collect their Aswasama payments. However, most people had to turn back due to the funds not being available. The Treasury issued an amount worth 5 billion rupees to banks yesterday to pay the first installment of the benefits. Accordingly, 800,000 families will receive their outstanding benefits from the month of July. State Minister of Finance Shehan Singh has said that the beneficiaries will have the opportunity to receive their benefits via banks from Tuesday. Beneficiaries visited banks on Tuesday to collect their Aswasama benefits.
සල්ලි ගන්න කියලා ඉතින් මේ සමහරක වෙట్లా අපේ වෙట్లా නැහැ අදවත් මොනවා හරි වෙයිද දන්නේ බලමු පොඩ්ඩක් නේද
අපේ මගේ සල්ලි නම් රුපියල් 5000ක මුදලක් වැටිලා තියෙනවා.
Residents of Kurunagala had to turn away and leave due to the benefits not being available at banks.
මොනවා කියන්නේ දෙනේ රටේ ඉතින් සල්ලි දානකම් විශ්වාස නැහැ අපිට නම් දැන්. මිනිස්සු අසරණ වෙලා පෝලිං ගාන ඉන්නවා. තාම සල්ලි නැහැ. කො සමෘද්ධිය හරි දෙන්න ඕනේ. සමෘද්ධියත් නැහැ, සල්ලිත් නැහැ.
ඉතින් මං එහෙම කවදාදායි වැටෙන්නේ කියලා ඉවල ඒක කියන්න දන්නේ නැහැ කිව්වා. ඉතින් අර අසනීප ළමයෙක් ඉන්නවා. ඒක තමයි ඉස්සෙල්ලා මේ ආවේ.
දැන් ඉතින් උදේම එන්න කිව්වා ආවා. ඇවිල්ලා බැලුවා මේ ගිණුමට සල්ලි වැටලා නැහැ කියලා කිව්වද?
සල්ලි වැටලා නෑ කිව්වා. දවස් 7 දිනයක් කිව්වේ නෑ සල්ලි වැටලා නෑ කිව්වා. සල්ලි තමයි ඕනේ ඉතින් ජීවත් වෙන්න නැතිකමට නෙමෙයි. බෙහෙත් ටික ගන්න ඕනේ.
The Freedom People's Congress says that the current government is implementing an economic policy that does not suit the country.
There was never a time when our people suffered like we do today. Therefore, it is imperative to change this government in the coming year. For that, building an alliance is an essential step. The current government's economic policy does not suit this country at all. It is because of such policies that our people are under a lot of pressure today. Daily life at present is a battle. It has happened because there is no social safety net. Aswasama is a total failure. The government has also accepted it.
Meanwhile, the Ariyasa electorate organizer of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Pasandayapa Bewardana, says that in order to strengthen the economy and stabilize the country, the current administration should be given at least one more year.
Does changing the pilot of an airplane for a mechanical issue solve the problem? No matter how many times the pilot is changed, if there is a problem with the plane's engine, not only the pilot but the plane itself and the passengers inside will crash. There is a problem in the whole system in our country. Nobody looks into the principles, the action plan or the behavior, or even if they have a proper vision. If they come tomorrow morning and give you something, will you vote in exchange? You will vote in exchange, would you not? If you want to change this country, you have to first be smart. The people want to know who is contesting for the election, who is the president, who is the prime minister. No matter who takes up what post, if this country is not stable for even 1 year, is there any point? First thing we have to do is give permission to the current administration to stabilize this country for at least 1 more year, setting aside political differences.
In the meantime, 18 districts have been affected due to the arid weather conditions. The Disaster Management Centre said 84,681 families and 291,804 people have been affected by the arid weather conditions. Farmers who cultivated in the Bovatta Kurulu Ala farmers settlement in Dambulla are suffering without water. 800 acres of fields have been cultivated under the Kurulu Ala farmers settlement. Water has been provided to fields in this settlement through the Huruluvaava. However, during the past few days, canals that provided water from the Huruluvaava have been dried up. Dry weather conditions have affected villages of Galgamua, Makalanegama, Mahavaava, Kokwava and Pahala as water sources in these areas have dried up. Farmers say with the Kokwava drying up, close to 30 acres of fields were destroyed. Dry weather has also affected multiple crops. Dairy farmers in Anuradhapura have been inconvenienced owing to the dry weather conditions. Dry weather has made it difficult to feed and maintain heifers. Dairy farmers say owing to the weather conditions, vegetation including grass has been dried up. Owing to this issue, more than 100 dairy farmers in Maningamua, Kudahal Millava, Atuvava, Lolugasvava, Panikvava and Mahahal Millavava have been affected. Dairy farmers in Tisogama in Bingiria are also facing a similar issue. Close to 450 dairy farmers live in Tisogama. They say the dairy produce has reduced by 50% because the animals do not have food to eat. Meanwhile, the coir industry too has been affected by the arid weather conditions. Meanwhile, the Ceylon Electricity Board says that electricity can be produced from hydropower plants for just another 35 days. Spokesperson of the Ceylon Electricity Board, Dhammika Navaratna, says that 12.6 megawatts of electricity was produced from the hydropower plants on Monday. The spokesperson of the CEB said that the rest of the electricity is obtained from thermal, solar and wind power plants. At present, the water levels in reservoirs associated with the power plants has reduced to 23.2%. He added that a total of 284 megawatts can be produced from the reservoirs in the vicinity of the power plants.
A Pirit chanting ceremony was held on Monday in Halmikulama Nochiagama in the hopes that adequate rainfall will be received. News First correspondent reported that the Pirit chanting ceremony will be performed for 7 consecutive days.
Many parts of Sri Lanka have been experiencing heavy showers since Tuesday morning. The Met Department, however, says that sufficient showers are only expected after October.
The Met Department predicts showers across several areas in Sri Lanka on Tuesday. Showers will occur in the Western and Sabaragamu provinces and in the Galle and Mathura districts. Several spells of showers will also occur in the Kandy and Noredia districts. Showers or thunder showers will occur at several places in the Uva province and in the Ampara, Batiklo and Mullaitivu districts during the evening or night. The department requests the public to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporary localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. Meanwhile, the sun will be directly over the latitudes of Sri Lanka from yesterday until the 7th of September.
The Ministry of Agriculture has decided to immediately deploy a group of officials to conduct a field study of the Udavalava reservoir. This is following a proposal made by the farming community in the area to remove the silt from the Udavalava reservoir where water is currently drying up.
The decision to deploy a group of officials to conduct a field study of the Udavalava reservoir was reached during a discussion at the Mahavali Authority of Sri Lanka. The report of the field study will be completed within 3 days and thereafter necessary action will be taken. The water capacity of the Udavalava reservoir is currently 265 million cubic meters. Following the process, the water capacity will increase by 0.5 million cubic meters. This will also allow the farmers to harvest an additional 300 acres of rice fields. The discussion was held under the chairmanship of Minister of Agriculture Mahinda Amaravira, Minister of Irrigation Roshan Ranasinghe and Minister of Wildlife and Forest Resources Conservation Pavitra Wanyarachi.
News First with the people.
India's Minister of Defence Rajnath Singh is scheduled to visit Sri Lanka this weekend. The Hindu newspaper reported that Indian security forces have confirmed it.
The Hindu newspaper reported that Rajnath Singh is scheduled to meet the President and his Chief of Staff Sagala Ratnayaka during his visit to Sri Lanka. India's Minister of Defence Rajnath Singh is also scheduled to visit Trincomalee during this visit, where he will look into the oil pipelines to be constructed between the two countries. Recently, during President Ranil Wickremesinghe's visit to India, proposals were also made regarding a fuel pipeline system and a bridge between the two countries. During this visit, the two sides also signed a memorandum of understanding related to a Trincomalee district strategic development plan. Meanwhile, the Hindu newspaper reported that this visit is taking place against the backdrop of the arrival of the Chinese research and survey vessel Xi'an-6 to Sri Lanka.
The Sri Lankan government has expressed willingness to receive an interim compensation for the Express Pearl disaster. According to the Attorney General's Department, the necessary notices in this regard were forwarded in writing to the ship's insurance company and the legal firm. By the Marine Environment Protection Authority, the interim compensation is to be received. The Attorney General's Department said that the Marine Environment Protection Authority has demanded an $89 million and 16 million rupees as interim compensation. The shipping company's insurance company and the legal firm had previously expressed their willingness to pay the interim compensation. The Attorney General's Department said that steps were taken to forward the government's agreement in that regard to those companies. The two parties referred to these agreements in relation to the decision taken during the negotiations held recently in Singapore. Up next is Crime Watch.
Crime Watch.
A woman was seriously injured and hospitalized in a shooting that took place in Dediyagala in Mathura on Monday night. The victim was a 25-year-old resident of the area and a mother of two. The victim's sister's husband had shot her following a family dispute. She was admitted to the Mathura General Hospital for treatment. The Bangama police arrested the suspect and seized the firearm that was used in the shooting. The suspect is a 38-year-old resident of Ariyasa. The suspect is to be produced before the Mathura Magistrates Court on Tuesday, and further investigations are to be carried out by the Bangama police.
Crime Watch.
Chairman of the Physicians Union Alliance for Medicine and Civil Rights, Dr. Chamal Sanjeeva says, owing to the shortage of vaccines administered for yellow fever, there is a possibility of yellow fever spreading.
It has been reported that not a single vial of the vaccine given for yellow fever is there in the Borella Medical Research Institute. For several months in Sri Lanka, there were no vaccines for yellow fever. Sri Lankans were allowed to travel to countries like the US and the regions like the Middle East without being provided the vaccine for yellow fever. Yellow fever has been reported from 34 countries at present. How are we sending Sri Lankans abroad without administering the yellow fever vaccine? This is a clear violation of the international health regulations.
The World Bank Group has published a roadmap for the development of offshore wind power in Sri Lanka.
The roadmap estimates that the country has a potential of 56 gigawatts of offshore wind power and identifies two areas where the first projects could be built. The two areas are located in the Gulf of Mannar, close to Mannar Island, and Puttalam. They have shallow waters suitable for fixed bottom foundations and moderate wind speeds averaging 8 to 9 meters per second. The World Bank has made 22 recommendations for the government of Sri Lanka to deliver the high growth scenario. These recommendations include setting offshore wind targets this year and preparing the first Pathfinder project by 2025. Overall, the roadmap provides a comprehensive overview of the potential of offshore wind power in Sri Lanka and steps that need to be taken to develop this resource.
US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung met with Senator Chris Van Hollen to discuss Sri Lanka's economic recovery.
US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chang posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, that Senator Chris Van Hollen is a long-time friend of Sri Lanka. She said that the senator has worked harder to strengthen the bonds between Sri Lanka and the US. She said, quote, "This week the senator and I will explore Sri Lanka's economic recovery, discuss avenues for enhanced partnership and deepen our joint commitment to uphold the democratic ideals," unquote. She added that the senator's unique connection to Sri Lanka, residing here when his father Chris Van Hollen Sr. was the US ambassador from 1972 to 1976, underscores the enduring 75-year partnership between the US and Sri Lanka.
In international news, an earthquake of magnitude 7 on the Richter scale struck the Bali Sea region of Indonesia on Tuesday.
The European Mediterranean Seismological Center reported an earthquake of magnitude 7 on the Richter scale struck the Bali Sea region of Indonesia on Tuesday. The US Geological Survey has pegged the magnitude at 7.1. No severe damages or loss of life was reported initially despite the tremor. The quake hit at great depth of 525 kilometers beneath the epicenter near Bangsal, Indonesia. Meanwhile, the US tsunami warning system said that there were no threats of tsunami as a result of the earthquake that hit deep under the seabed.
A technical issue at the UK air traffic control led to long flight delays, with thousands of passengers stuck and over 500 flights delayed on planes and at airports on Monday. The situation has now been diffused with technical issues resolved.
Thousands of travellers faced flight delays and uncertainty Monday after the United Kingdom's air traffic control system was hit by technical problems that resulted in the cancellation of at least 500 flights in and out of British airports. Britain's National Air Traffic Service said in a statement to foreign media yesterday that a technical issue had forced restrictions to the flow of aircraft in and out of the UK on Monday, the end of a long weekend and one of the busiest holidays of the year for travel, amid reports of widespread flight delays into London from popular vacation destinations. According to the BBC, more than 6,000 flights were due in and out of the UK on Monday. The BBC reported that the situation has now been diffused with technical issues resolved.
As it was mentioned in the headlines, hurricane warnings and storm surge warnings are flying for portions of the Gulf Coast of Florida as tropical storm Idalia has begun its northward march towards the state.
Residents in evacuation areas should heed evacuation orders quickly. Idalia is expected to accelerate its forward speed, so landfall and conditions will rapidly deteriorate beginning late Tuesday morning in the afternoon across the warned areas in Florida. On Monday, Idalia was located in the Yucatan Channel between Mexico and western Cuba, with top sustained winds of 65 miles per hour and headed north at 8 miles per hour.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Lunchtime News here on TV1. For the News First team, I've been Senitha Senanayaka. Take care and stay safe.